Da 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 da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes, get those notifications out, let people know I've gone live. In the meantime, if you've never met me before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. I'm just smiling at myself. I'm trying different little lighting experiments this week and trying to find something that will work for us. I took the reflective film off my glasses in order to not have to go out and buy a new prescription, but it is interfering with my lives. And it's interfering in my lives because it's catching my attention, right? We should have bigger things to talk about than what's reflecting off my glasses. But lots of things get our attention and lots of things get under our skins quite often, and that's not a big thing, not in any way. But you know what? It easily could be. It's that idea of when you have start your day and just one trip up after another, and your work is falling apart, and you got people on the phone with attitudes, and you're on your very last nerve, and then what happens? You spill your coffee all over your desk. And you give yourself a reaming out. Like you give yourself just the right worse than you would ever give to anybody else, because we are harder on ourselves than we are with other people. But we're not giving it to ourselves because of that spilt coffee in that moment in the desk. It's just all those things that added up during the course of the day, you know? And it's just a pile up, and we don't even think of it in the moment what it is or why we've done that. And it is because, right, we've been courteous. We bit our tongue. We have put things off for a time when it was more appropriate, right? And it's just that built up like a little volcano inside of us, and then some little incident, maybe somebody, it's that joke, you're getting on my last nerve, right? You're giving me a headache, you're getting on my last nerve. And really, it's not because anybody is has done anything terrible. It's just the pile up, it's just the accumulative. And we have days like that. Sometimes we have weeks like that. Sometimes we're dealing with something that's so heavy and so heartbreaking and so frustrating that we're living with it and on a constant basis. And when we live on it with a constant basis, we have to think, who are the people in our lives, right? The people who've been supporting us, the people who've been right putting up with us during these times, but because we're so stressed out, right? And because they are so close to us, we expect them to hold a little bit more, especially in difficult times, that we don't think sometimes how we're laying it on to other people. That's one thing about somebody who kind of, right, little bit of a lone wolf that hangs out on their own. I'm quite content in my own company, but it's not just for my own benefit, it's for the benefit of others. I feel sometimes that need of others to be on their own to resolve things, right? And I am one of those people. If I have the answer, or if I have the capability to jump out or jump in and give a hand, that sometimes I can be a little bit much, right? My sister Tracy, she says sometimes I'm a little bit preachy. I get it. But I'm passionate about what I'm passionate, if nothing else, I'm passionate about what I do for my own life. And because, my brand is part of my life, being a vlogger of sorts, that, it is in that sharing company. But we have to be considerate of each other and put ourselves in other people's shoes and say, was that really called for? Right? Did I really need to tear their head off because I wore the wrong pair of shoes to work? Right? My feet hurt, or I missed my bus, or I spilt my coffee on the desk. And then just whoever's close to you, they get it. They get the attitude, and they get it because you can feel that. You can feel that. And then, you're bringing your misery. And this is something I learned off of my father, and it's not like he taught this to us, but because he lived his life that way, he became the evidence for us kids. And, we could see all the time, my dad had lots of problems, there was lots of things going on in his life that, as a small kid, we don't care, right? Dinner's on the table, roof over our head, we're going to school, we get playtime, not much supervision because my mother's off working too. That it became a way for us to have babysitters when we didn't actually have babysitters, right? And but my dad being the example of how he wanted us to live, and then for him to be that example, he would have to be that person himself, right? He would be that person himself. And I noticed that, when he had those bad times, and I knew there were hard times, but, being a kid, it wasn't something that was on my high priority list, right? I had my needs taken care of, but there were times, that dad would walk in the door with a 25-pound bag of rice, and we knew that mom would be doing her 101 recipes for the next month until my dad caught up in his debts and whatever situation. He problem solved in lots of different ways. That adapt and conquer, another thing that I learned off of him. I learned just as much about adapt and conquer off of my mother as my father, because a lot of the problems ended up in my mother's lap, right? And so we just follow her dictation in order to get us out of whatever sticky situation that we were in. But my mother, right? It's really strange when you think about how we hold on to things and then blow up on ourselves and blow up on others, because that was something that my mother did, and that's a very emotional trait, right? My mother was very, right, you could never tell. I was constantly from a baby reading my mother's energy, not knowing what I was doing, but in my own hypervigilant and wanting to be safe, I was always studying and trying to figure out, trying to appease her. And there was no figuring out that one, because that's the thing with borderlines, that they're just so mixed up in their emotions that, there's always that last nerve, and you don't know when it's going to come, right? Being the person that I am, I'm right and more than likely to beat my own self up about something. That was my own stupid mistake. I shouldn't have listened to them. If they told me to jump off a bridge, would I? Right? Rather than put that on somebody else. That was never my way of getting things done. I swung towards my dad's way of living. Whistle while you work. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Adapt and conquer, ride the waves. And we always managed to get out of whatever that situation was. But I understood it was in the attitude. People were more than likely to jump in and help, right? If you were apologetic, if you hit a car, right? You start yelling at them, they're just gonna, you ruined my new Mercedes, and you freaking right out. But if you sit there, maybe they would just like run up to the window and they'd say, are you okay, dear? Right? Are you okay? And it's all in the attitude of how we handle those really stressful, frustrating, and accumulative moments. And those are the worst because somebody is going to get it, get it really good for something probably really small. And yeah, that's the truth. I grew up that way. I know how these emotions work, and I'm grateful that I had some evidence in my life that because I was so rejective in what wasn't right, that I had an example in my life that I could, right, kind of move along in. But you know that saying, what is it, you get more with honey than you do with vinegar. And that's the truth. And uh even in my last job, because it was a hard time. You're working with lots of vulnerable, you're working with a lot of crazy emotions. You're working even with low incomes and people who have a lot of pride, and right, and you have to respect that, because you understand that they're having those kind of days every day, right? Lots of people, that's what their life is like, day in and day out. And I can vouch for that because I was one of those people. And that was from not paying attention and making good decisions and trying to keep all those problems and frustrations and things off the plate, so that in the moment I was just dealing with what was going on in the moment, and not for the, oh my goodness, I messed up, what am I going to do now? And you can't even think of what's going on right in that moment, right? And over the years I've gotten so much better at it. But every once in a while I get a reminder and I go, oh my goodness, that's a terrible feeling. How could I even put myself under that kind of stress? It was like I used to do the payday loans. And oh my goodness, I'd have like three of those going every payroll, and each one was taking a claim on my one payroll. And I was owing more than what I was bringing in. I was basically working for free. And I was doing those payday loans because for me, that was a solution in the moment to get out of those gambling situations that I would get myself into again, right? My father being the example for me. We pick our, what do you call that, we pick our poison, right? We pick our coping mechanisms. And so I had that emotional connection with my dad, and my dad gambled. And right, I'm not saying for sure that's the way it was, but when I go in and I do the work and I put myself in that situation and I ask myself those questions, it makes quite reasonable, right, sense that that's exactly what I was doing. If my dad can gamble, I can too. And I was stuck in it for over 20 years, very badly, 20 to $30,000 a year. when that was what I was making. Yeah, it was a scary time. And I'm so grateful. I forgot, when I think about those addictions that I conquered, that payday loan was one that I conquered. That took me, I was stuck in that for a few years. It was so scary and so hard, but I didn't have another solution. And then I think, because I do these goals every income tax return time to put my money towards something important. I think one year what I did is I said, I'm going to pay my payday loans off and I'm never going to touch them again. And that's exactly what I did. Income tax return came in, take my refund, cash it, paid off all my payday loans, and never did that again and never gave it a thought, right? And that's an important one too, right? Because lots of times we do things compulsively. Hello, everybody. I see you there. Let me get this notification out of the way. I see that Kathy popped in. Hello, Kathy, Eugene. I'm doing good tonight. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for popping in and hanging out with me tonight. It has been, you know, a week of just settling in and just listening to the conversations going on, feeling out what's going on in the world. There's a lot of movement, a lot of crazy realignment kind of moving if you're paying attention and it's not a matter of paying attention, looking, but feeling and listening and right and looking at the players in the game and look at the changes as what's going on, right? Lots of change in a lot of different aspects going on right now. And it's just a matter of us just riding those waves, right? Just riding those waves and allowing the adjustments to happen, right? Even in my own life in this moment, I'm right. I'm not super comfortable in the adjustments, but I'm just doing my thing. I'm just moving forward. I'm staying in my lane. I've got a video to edit. I cleared my computer off this afternoon, and tomorrow I will upload. I don't think all the footage because I was there. I did a lot of filming. I'm looking at that the next provincial park that I did, which was Sioux Narrows, and I'm looking at that footage. And I'm going, oh my goodness, like where did the power come for all that footage? Because I've got like I've got a good hour trail walk too in that video. I might cut that one up and do that one separately. I might do that. That will take a good chunk of time off of my next video. That's a good solution. See, and I worked that through just by just by letting you guys know. So Wednesday I'll have the next and the last installment up if I don't put the walk with me up, which means there'll be 5 videos out of this trip. It was a wonderful trip, you guys. It was, it was amazing. It was just as good, if not better, than any year that I've gone out on my trips. And there were lots of issues, and I was kind of messed up physically, but mentally, I would have to say I was in awe of my experience. It was really amazing, and that was like I said. You just stay in that positive. You just stay in what you've got to get done, and also not in just what you got to get done, but when it is frustrating and you're gonna have somebody step on that last nerve, go burn something off. Go for a walk. Go play some racquetball, right? Go hit a punching bag. Get on a walking machine, right? Whistle while you work. Stay even more busier because you know the season doesn't last, right? Things are moving into place and they'll settle down and we're just going to have the most amazing year. This is going to be a great year for all of us, right? This is just been one thing after another now for a very long time. And I think it because of that we look at it as a very long time, but if you look at the adjustments in the world in that time, it makes perfect sense that it's at the pace that it is. I believe in baby steps, right? That we're going to get things all sorted out, right? But you just don't wiggle your nose and say abracadabra and it's done, right? Because there are lots of unique parties involved and everybody has got to feel like they're a little bit of a winner in the adjustment. That's for sure. I'm just right? I'm showing up. I'm doing my podcasts. I'm staying in the lessons. I'm staying connected within my family, staying connected with Mother Nature, and I'm doing the very best that I can. Could I do better? Yeah. But if I did better, right? Going to crank out on somebody. And somebody will get on my last nerve. And that's why it's important, right? That we're doing things slowly, that we're doing things comfortably, that we're absorbing, right? Because we do absorb. Try not to absorb too much of what's going on out there because a lot of it is in the readjustment. And, I just have to pay attention enough that I can move, right? I can adjust myself if I have to adjust myself. So far, so good. Okay, you guys, what are we going to do? We're going to pick a card. We're just going to go into it for a couple of minutes and then we're going to call it a night. And yeah, I'm going to get in my pajamas and enjoy a little bit of what I enjoy, right? I got a nice fresh cup of coffee there that I haven't touched. Let's have a sip. Oh, beautiful. Yeah, so Wednesday, if you guys want to come in. If you guys want to come in on Sunday night, Chatters Live, I have a great crew over there on Sunday night. They chat more than I do, and you might think that's hard, but they do. I got some big chatters over on my channel, and I love them to death. And yeah, if you want to get enveloped by something amazing, come and experience our Sunday night. It's a little bit lighter than these ones here. Okay, you guys, this is the card. Word of the day. I'm only doing luck because it has been a word that's coming up, and it is, it was like yak was in my Latin code. So the word we got is community. Community offers up a sense of belonging. Remember what I said, come in on Sunday night, come hang out with us. My crew yaps more than I do. And that is my crew. I'm very grateful and I am astounded in all actuality, right? Because I've gone through so many changes in the past 10 years. Yes, I've been here on YouTube for 10 years, right? That these people have been with me in all that time, right? In fact, I probably pretty certain they knew I was in an experience long before I even recognized that I was in an experience. And, I'm so grateful in that company, right? Because it's I think something that is um well, definitely it's life changing, isn't it? It's, definition of change. It's definitely a biggie, but it's part of that readjustment at the same time. You know what I mean? That I'm grateful to wake up to some of these ideas so that I can, right? I don't know if you want to call it prepare or maybe it is just understand a little bit better as to what's going on. And that's probably what keeps my system so so calm, right? And to actually, and it's not always calm, but for the most part, I ride the waves, I take my lessons in, and I understand the ebb and flow. And I understand that, if I could do my best to keep as much off my plate so that I'm not putting myself in that position of stress and worry, it would be better if it wasn't in my life at all. But we all understand that things get thrown into our lives all the time, right? So it's in that resilience, and it's in that practice, it's in that, and I'd much rather resolve those kind of issues and those kind of problems. Can you imagine me when I was a compulsive gambler? That I was constantly in a state of problem solving, like constant. And it was always money related. It was always a desperate, because it's not like I didn't recognize that I had problems with the gambling, right? I most definitely did, but I didn't know how to cope any other way. And as much as I tried, and I cried lots of times, oh, I'll never touch those, get me out of this, get me out of this situation I'm in, and I will never touch those machines again. I don't know how many times I made that promise, right? Yeah, so grateful. It's been a half a dozen years now. I don't even do lottery tickets, right? I don't even say I bet you, right? That's just out of my life completely. And and I am grateful for that. But again, when we think about these things that we've overcome and got better at, we don't give ourselves credit for that. We just talk about how stupid we are because we spilt the coffee all over our desk, and we don't actually think, oh my goodness, we've come so far. We've done so much good for our lives. In this moment, it doesn't look like what I dream or what I hope or what I set my goals towards. But you know what? It doesn't look what it was looking like half a dozen years ago either. It looks so much better. It feels so much better. And to have a little bit of sense of understanding in a time that I might not have been able to ride those waves because it might have been too, what's the word I'm looking for? Not desperate, hopeless, right? It would have been, might have been just too much, right? That you sometimes, the worst kicks are the ones that just come after the first kick. You know what I mean? When you're down already, when things are not going good, and that one nerve, right? And you got kicked one more time. The attitude helps. It really does. It was, for me, a hold my ground, don't turn the other cheek. It was right. It was a lot of sticking up for myself, and I'm grateful that I stuck up for myself, because a lot of situations my life could have been a whole lot different. At least I have that pride in myself that I cared for myself that much, and I appreciated, and I felt like I deserved just as much as anybody else, that I gave myself that. I'm proud. I am definitely proud of that. But I tell you, right? I could have made it a whole lot easier on myself if I had zipped it, or if I did like my dad did, just kind and unargumentative and My dad still had an opinion. He was an intelligent man. Right? But he never pushed and he respected boundaries as much as he expected his boundaries to be respected. So yeah, I credit a lot to my dad, good or bad, right? We all have to take after someone and we have to choose our rights, we have to choose our wrongs, and we have to choose our hearts too. That was the one I saw on a post today. Choose your heart. I can't remember whose post that was. It was somebody's. Okay, you guys, I'm calling it a night. My community on Sunday night, if you want to come in and hang out with us, feel like you belong, because they'll instantly make you feel like you belong. And you know what? You probably do belong. If the thought comes to you Sunday night, 7:30 Central, I will be there. I hope you will too. Thank you everybody for coming in to my live. Thank you. Oh, I'm glad you're watching them, Kathy. I'm glad you're watching them. Awesome. Awesome. Okay, everybody. Have a great night and we'll see you tomorrow.